Viewer discretion is advised. 22 is a true crime podcast that delves into real-life crime stories, which often involve graphic descriptions, sensitive content, and strong language that may not be suitable for all audiences. We strive to present these cases with the utmost respect for the victims and their families. Please note that the content discussed may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. Additionally, all resources and information presented in this podcast are obtained from publicly available internet sources. Listener discretion is strongly advised, and we recommend that only mature audiences proceed with caution. If you are sensitive to such content, please consider watching another video. Stay safe and take care of your mental health. The Ballina Nursing Home Murders, Nurse Megan Haines' deadly betrayal. In this gripping episode of 22, we delve into the harrowing case of Nurse Megan Haines and the dark secrets that lay hidden within the walls of St Andrew's Village Nursing Home in Ballina, New South Wales. What was meant to be a place of care and comfort turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. Join us as we uncover the chilling details of how Megan Haines, a trusted caregiver, betrayed the trust of her patients in the most horrific way possible. We explore the lives of Darragh and Isabella Spencer, two elderly women who became the tragic victims of Haines' deadly betrayal. Through meticulous investigation and powerful testimonies, we piece together the events leading up to the murders, the investigation that followed, and the trial that sought justice for the victims. This episode, The Ballina Nursing Home Murders, Nurse Megan Haines' deadly betrayal, is a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and accountability in elder care. Tune in to hear the full story and the impact this case has had on the community and elder care regulations worldwide. Chapter 1, Introduction. She was supposed to be their caregiver, someone they could trust in their most vulnerable moments. Instead, she became their worst nightmare. Welcome to 22, the podcast that delves deep into the most chilling true crime stories from around the globe. Today, we uncover the dark secrets hidden within the walls of St Andrew's Village Nursing Home. A place meant for care and comfort turned into a scene of unimaginable horror. In this episode, we bring you the harrowing case of Nurse Megan Haines, a name that would forever be etched in the memories of the residents and families of St Andrew's Village in Ballina, New South Wales. Megan Haines, a registered nurse, was entrusted with the care of the elderly, but instead of providing solace, she betrayed their trust in the most horrific way imaginable. Today, we will take you through the events leading up to the murders, the meticulous investigation that followed, and the trial that sought justice for Marie and Isabella. But before we dive into the details of the crime, let's meet the key individuals involved in this tragic story. Megan Haines was a registered nurse who joined St Andrew's Village with a seemingly ordinary background. Born and raised in South Africa, Haines chose nursing as a career, a profession that promised to be both fulfilling and impactful. However, her career was marred by a series of complaints and troubling behavior that would eventually lead to a horrific outcome. Marie Darragh, aged 82, was a beloved mother and grandmother. She was known for her spirited personality and love for her family. Despite her age, Marie was mentally sharp and had a zest for life that was infectious. She moved to St Andrew's Village seeking a peaceful environment where she could spend her golden years. Isabella Spencer, aged 77, was a gentle soul with a kind heart. She had a close-knit family and was cherished by all who knew her. Isabella's family trusted that she would receive the best care possible at St Andrew's Village. Little did they know that her life would be cut short by someone meant to protect her. These two women, who had lived full and meaningful lives, were about to face an unimaginable fate. Their deaths would not only shatter their families but also expose the dark underbelly of elder care facilities and the dangers that lurk within. Join us as we delve into the chilling details of the Ballina Nursing Home Murders, Nurse Megan Haines' deadly betrayal. St Andrew's Village Nursing Home in Ballina, New South Wales, was once considered a peaceful retreat for the elderly. Nestled in a serene environment, it offered a haven of comfort and care for its residents. The facility was known for its friendly staff, clean premises, and the compassionate care it provided. Families felt reassured knowing their loved ones were in good hands. However, beneath this tranquil surface, a dark shadow loomed. To fully understand the tragic events that unfolded, we need to delve into the background of Megan Haines. Born and raised in South Africa, Haines' early life appeared relatively normal. She decided to pursue a career in nursing, a profession that promised to be both fulfilling and impactful. Her early career was unremarkable, but it wasn't long before red flags began to appear. Megan Haines had a troubling history of complaints from previous employment. These complaints ranged from neglectful behavior to rough handling of patients. Despite these warnings, she continued to find employment in various healthcare settings. Her colleagues often described her as aloof and unapproachable, with a tendency to become frustrated with her patients. In a decision that would later be heavily scrutinized, Megan Haines was hired by St Andrew's Village. At the time, it seemed the nursing home either overlooked or was unaware of her troubling past. Haines' employment at St. Andrews began without incident, but it wasn't long before issues started to arise. The nursing home had a rigorous hiring process, but in Haines' case, some red flags might have been ignored or missed. Her previous employment history should have been a cause for concern, but the need for staff might have overshadowed these warnings. This oversight would prove to be a grave mistake. Almost immediately, residents and staff began to notice issues with Haines' conduct. Complaints started to pour in, highlighting her refusal to assist with basic personal needs and her rough handling of the elderly. Among those who lodged complaints were Darragh and Isabella Spencer, whose voices would tragically be silenced. Darragh, a vibrant 82-year-old, was known for her spirited personality and love for her family. She had raised concerns about Haines' behavior multiple times, describing instances where Haines refused to help her with personal hygiene and left her in soiled clothing. Isabella Spencer, a 77-year-old with a gentle demeanor, also complained about Haines. She reported being handled roughly, causing her physical and emotional distress. These complaints were not isolated incidents but part of a broader pattern of behavior that painted a grim picture of life under Haines' care. Other residents echoed similar sentiments, describing Haines as someone who lacked empathy and patience. The specific incidents reported by Marie and Isabella were detailed and disturbing. Marie recalled a particularly distressing episode where Haines refused to help her change out of soiled clothes, leaving her in discomfort for hours. Isabella recounted an incident where Haines roughly grabbed her arm, leaving bruises. These complaints were formally documented, and staff members were aware of the ongoing issues with Haines. Despite the mounting evidence against her, she continued to work at St. Andrews Village. The management, caught between staffing challenges and the welfare of the residents, struggled to address the escalating situation effectively. Chapter 3: The Murders. It was a quiet night at St. Andrews Village Nursing Home on May 10, 2014. The residents were settling into their routines, and the staff were making their usual rounds. But within the calm of the nursing home, a storm was brewing. Unbeknownst to many, this night would end in tragedy, forever altering the lives of everyone connected to St. Andrews. Earlier that day, Megan Haines had been informed of several complaints lodged against her by residents, including Darragh and Isabella Spencer. The complaints were serious, highlighting her refusal to assist with personal needs and her rough handling of the elderly. Haines' reaction was anything but professional. Witnesses later recalled a noticeable shift in her demeanor, a cold determination that hinted at something dark. As the night progressed, Haines' malevolent plan took shape. With calculated precision, she administered lethal doses of insulin to Darragh and Isabella Spencer. Insulin, a life-saving drug for diabetics, can be deadly in the wrong hands and at the wrong dosage. Haines, well aware of this, used her medical knowledge to execute her sinister plan. The nursing home, usually a place of safety and care, became the scene of a double homicide. Haines' actions were swift and deliberate, her intent clear. Marie and Isabella, both vulnerable and trusting, fell victim to the very person entrusted with their care. The following morning, St. Andrews Village was plunged into chaos. The lifeless bodies of Darragh and Isabella Spencer were discovered, sending shockwaves through the facility. Staff members were horrified, unable to comprehend the horror that had unfolded overnight. The nursing home, once a haven for the elderly, had become a crime scene. Authorities were immediately called, and an investigation was launched. The initial shock quickly gave way to a determined effort to uncover the truth behind the tragic deaths. The police wasted no time in gathering evidence. Early on, suspicion fell on Megan Haines. Her behavior in the hours following the discovery was erratic and uncooperative, raising further doubts about her innocence. Investigators noted her cold demeanor and evasive answers, which only intensified their focus on her. As the investigation progressed, more evidence began to surface. Forensic experts meticulously examined the scene, while detectives interviewed staff and residents. The puzzle pieces were slowly coming together, and Haines was at the center of it all. Witness statements played a crucial role in building the case against Haines. Colleagues and residents recounted her actions and behavior on the night of the murders. One colleague mentioned seeing Haines near the victims' rooms at unusual hours, while another recalled her disturbing conversations about using insulin in harmful ways. These testimonies painted a disturbing picture of Haines, a nurse who not only neglected her duty of care but actively sought to harm those she was supposed to protect. The evidence against her was mounting, and it was becoming increasingly clear that she had a motive and the means to commit the murders. The police investigation was thorough and relentless. Forensic analysis confirmed that the insulin doses administered to Marie and Isabella were far beyond therapeutic levels, conclusively pointing to foul play. Detectives compiled a comprehensive case file, including forensic evidence, witness statements, and Haines' own troubling history. Haines' arrest followed swiftly. She was taken into custody, her cold demeanor unchanged. In the face of overwhelming evidence, she maintained her innocence, claiming to remember nothing about the conversations regarding insulin or the murders themselves. But the evidence spoke louder than her denials. The once trusted nurse was now the prime suspect in a chilling double homicide that shook the community to its core. Chapter 4: Investigation and Arrest. The discovery of the bodies of Darragh and Isabella Spencer sent shockwaves through St. Andrew's Village. The peaceful nursing home was now the scene of a horrific crime. Authorities responded immediately, securing the crime scene and beginning their initial investigation. The first responders noted the unusual circumstances surrounding the deaths and quickly recognized the need for a thorough forensic analysis. Forensic experts descended upon St. Andrew's Village, meticulously collecting evidence. The autopsies of Maria and Isabella revealed insulin levels far beyond therapeutic doses, confirming suspicions of foul play. Physical evidence from the crime scene, including medical supplies and potential fingerprints, was gathered and analyzed. The forensic analysis was crucial in establishing the cause of death and narrowing down the list of suspects. As investigators began piecing together the events leading up to the murders, suspicion quickly fell on Megan Haines. Her behavior in the immediate aftermath was erratic and uncooperative, raising red flags. Additionally, Haines had a troubling history of complaints from residents and staff about her rough handling and neglectful behavior. These factors, combined with her presence at the nursing home during the time of the murders, made her a primary suspect. Staff and residents provided statements that further incriminated Haines. They recounted her reaction upon learning of the complaints lodged against her just hours before the murders. Haines' demeanor shifted noticeably, a cold determination replacing her usual aloofness. These observations were crucial in directing the investigation towards her. When Haines was brought in for questioning, her responses did little to dispel the growing suspicion. She claimed innocence, stating she had no recollection of any conversations about using insulin to harm the residents. However, her statements were inconsistent and evasive. Investigators noted her lack of empathy and her attempts to deflect blame, which only deepened their doubts about her innocence. Key witness testimonies played a pivotal role in building the case against Haines. Colleagues and residents provided detailed accounts of her behavior and comments both before and after the murders. One colleague recalled a chilling conversation where Haines boasted about committing the perfect murder using insulin. Another resident described seeing Haines near the victims' rooms at unusual hours on the night of the murders. These testimonies painted a disturbing picture of Haines as someone who not only neglected her duty of care but actively sought to harm those she was supposed to protect. The evidence against her was mounting, and it was becoming increasingly clear that she had both the motive and the means to commit the murders. With the evidence pointing overwhelmingly towards her guilt, authorities moved to arrest Megan Haines. The arrest was swift and decisive. Haines was taken into custody, her demeanor cold and unrepentant. She was formally charged with the murders of Darragh and Isabella Spencer, and the community watched in horror as the details of the case unfolded. Haines' bail hearing was a critical moment in the case. The prosecution argued forcefully against granting bail, citing the severity of the charges and the overwhelming evidence of her guilt. They painted a picture of a woman who posed a significant risk to the community. The defense, on the other hand, struggled to present a convincing argument for her release. In the end, the court denied bail, keeping Haines behind bars as the case progressed towards trial. As Haines remained in custody, the prosecution continued to build their case. Additional evidence was collected, and more witnesses were interviewed. The goal was to create an airtight case that would leave no doubt about Haines' guilt. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, was meticulously analyzed and prepared for the impending trial. The stage was set for a courtroom battle that would seek justice for Darragh and Isabella Spencer. Chapter 5: The Trial. The trial of Megan Haines began with a sense of heavy anticipation. The courtroom was filled with the families of the victims, reporters, and members of the community seeking justice for Darragh and Isabella Spencer. The opening statements set the tone for what would be a dramatic and emotionally charged trial. The prosecution began with a powerful opening statement, laying out the chilling details of the case against Haines. They painted a picture of a nurse who had not only neglected her duty of care but had deliberately administered lethal doses of insulin to her patients. They promised to provide overwhelming evidence of her guilt, including forensic data and witness testimonies. The defense countered with their own narrative, claiming that Haines was being unfairly targeted and that there were inconsistencies in the evidence. They urged the jury to keep an open mind and to consider the possibility of an alternative explanation for the deaths of Darragh and Isabella. The prosecution's case was methodically presented, beginning with the forensic evidence. Experts testified about the high levels of insulin found in the victims' bodies, levels that were far beyond therapeutic and undoubtedly lethal. The forensic pathologist described how the insulin had led to a rapid decline in the victim's health, resulting in their deaths. Medical records were introduced, showing that neither Darragh nor Isabella Spencer required insulin, making the presence of the drug in their systems even more damning. The prosecution emphasized that only someone with medical knowledge and access to insulin could have committed these murders. Key witnesses took the stand, including colleagues of Haines who described her rough treatment of patients and her knowledge of insulin's lethality. One particularly damaging testimony came from a former coworker who recounted a conversation with Haines where she casually discussed the use of insulin to harm someone. Family members of the victims also testified, providing emotional accounts of the impact of the murders on their lives. Darragh's daughter spoke of her mother's fear and complaints about Haines, while Isabella Spencer's brother tearfully described the anguish of losing his sister in such a cruel manner. The defense faced an uphill battle. They argued that there was no direct evidence linking Haines to the administration of the insulin. They suggested that the deaths could have been accidental or the result of another person's actions. Haines herself took the stand, maintaining her innocence and claiming she had no knowledge of how the insulin ended up in the victims' bodies. The defense called several witnesses in an attempt to cast doubt on the prosecution's case. These included character witnesses who spoke of Haines' professionalism and dedication as a nurse. However, their testimonies were often undermined during cross-examination by the prosecution, who highlighted the numerous complaints and Haines' history of rough treatment towards patients. The cross-examinations were intense. The prosecution skillfully dismantled the defense's arguments, highlighting inconsistencies in Haines' story and the implausibility of an accidental insulin overdose. They focused on the premeditated nature of the murders, pointing to the timing of the complaints and the swift administration of the lethal doses. The defense struggled to poke holes in the prosecution's case. Their attempts to undermine the credibility of the forensic experts and key witnesses were largely unsuccessful, and the jury's perception of Haines grew increasingly negative. In their closing arguments, the prosecution summarized the overwhelming evidence of Haines' guilt. They reminded the jury of the detailed forensic evidence, the damning witness testimonies, and the emotional impact statements from the victims' families. They argued that Haines had betrayed her duty as a nurse and deserved to be held accountable for her actions. The defense, in their final plea, asked the jury to consider the possibility of reasonable doubt. They pointed to the lack of direct evidence and urged the jury not to convict Haines based solely on circumstantial evidence and character testimonies. The jury deliberated for several hours, carefully weighing the evidence presented during the trial. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as everyone awaited the verdict. Finally, the jury returned with their decision. As the judge read the verdict, the courtroom held its breath. Megan Haines was found guilty of the murders of Darragh and Isabella Spencer. The relief and sorrow from the victims' families were evident, as was the sense of justice finally being served. Chapter 6. Sentencing and Reactions. The sentencing hearing for Megan Haines was a somber yet pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice for Darragh and Isabella Spencer. The courtroom was packed with the victims' families, media representatives, and members of the community. The atmosphere was tense as everyone awaited the judge's decision. The judge began by recounting the details of the case, highlighting the deliberate and premeditated nature of Haines' actions. He emphasized the trust placed in healthcare professionals, a trust Haines had egregiously violated. After carefully considering the evidence and the impact on the victims' families, the judge delivered the sentence. Megan Haines was to serve 36 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 27 years. The courtroom was filled with a mixture of relief and sorrow as the families of Darragh and Isabella Spencer processed the judge's decision. Marie's daughter, her voice trembling with emotion, spoke about her mother's vibrant life and the void her death had left in their family. She expressed a profound sense of betrayal, emphasizing that her mother had placed her trust in Haines, only to have it shattered in the most horrific way. Isabella Spencer's brother also took the stand. His grief was palpable as he described the loving relationship he had with his sister. He spoke of the heartache and anger that had consumed their family since Isabella's death, and how Haines' actions had forever changed their lives. The broader community of Ballina, including the staff and residents of St. Andrew's Village, reacted strongly to the sentencing. Many expressed relief that justice had been served but also shared a lingering sense of unease. The media covered the case extensively, highlighting the community's outrage and the demand for accountability in nursing homes. Public response was intense, with many calling for significant reforms to ensure such a tragedy could never happen again. The story of Megan Haines and her victims became a focal point for discussions on eldercare and the safeguarding of vulnerable populations. In his final remarks, the judge did not hold back. He condemned Haines for her gross abuse of trust and the calculated nature of her crimes. He stressed the importance of protecting vulnerable individuals in care facilities and ensuring that such heinous acts do not go unpunished. The judge's words resonated deeply, serving as a stern reminder of the responsibilities that come with providing care for the elderly. The repercussions of the case extended beyond the courtroom. St. Andrew's Village, once considered a safe haven for the elderly, faced intense scrutiny. In response, the nursing home implemented stricter regulations and policies to enhance the safety and well-being of its residents. These changes included increased staff training, more rigorous background checks, and improved monitoring of patient care. The broader implications for elder care were significant. The case prompted a nationwide discussion on the standards and practices within nursing homes. Regulatory bodies began reviewing and updating their guidelines to prevent such tragedies from recurring. The importance of vigilance, transparency, and accountability in elder care became a central theme in these reforms. In the aftermath of the sentencing, advocacy groups and community leaders rallied for further action. They called for increased oversight in care facilities and the installation of cameras to monitor patient care more effectively. These measures were seen as crucial steps in protecting vulnerable residents from abuse and neglect. The families of the victims, along with supporters, led efforts to raise awareness about the need for reform. Their stories served as powerful reminders of the potential consequences of inadequate oversight and the critical need for systemic change. The call to action resonated with many, inspiring a movement towards safer and more compassionate care for the elderly. Chapter 7: Impact and Aftermath. The fallout from the trial of Megan Haines was immediate and profound at St. Andrew's Village. The nursing home, once a symbol of care and compassion, was now synonymous with neglect and tragedy. In the wake of the trial, the management at St. Andrew's Village implemented a series of urgent changes aimed at restoring trust and ensuring the safety of their residents. New policies and procedures were introduced, focusing on enhancing the oversight of staff and improving the overall quality of care. These changes included rigorous background checks for all employees, increased staff training on elder care, and more frequent and thorough inspections of the facility. The management also established a dedicated team to handle complaints, ensuring that any concerns raised by residents or their families were addressed promptly and effectively. The case of Megan Haines resonated far beyond the confines of St. Andrew's Village. It sparked a national and international conversation about the standards of elder care and the measures needed to protect vulnerable populations. Media coverage was extensive, with the case becoming a focal point for discussions on the deficiencies in nursing home care. Public discourse highlighted the need for systemic changes to prevent such tragedies from occurring again. The case prompted a re-evaluation of how elder care facilities operate, leading to calls for improved oversight and accountability. It became clear that the issues exposed by the Haines case were not isolated but part of a broader problem affecting many nursing homes worldwide. In response to the outrage and concern generated by the case, several regulatory reforms and legislative changes were introduced. Authorities recognized the need for stricter oversight and more robust regulatory frameworks to safeguard the elderly in care facilities. New legislation mandated increased transparency and accountability in nursing homes. This included compulsory reporting of any incidents of abuse or neglect, as well as more frequent and unannounced inspections by regulatory bodies. These reforms aimed to create a safer and more transparent environment for residents, ensuring that their well-being was the top priority. For the families of Darragh and Isabella Spencer, the journey to healing was long and arduous. Their personal accounts of coping with the loss of their loved ones were heart-wrenching. Marie's daughter spoke of the emotional toll her mother's death had taken on their family and how the memories of her vibrant, caring mother were now tainted by the horror of her final days. Isabella Spencer's brother shared similar sentiments, describing the profound sense of loss and betrayal. Both families channeled their grief into advocacy, determined to ensure that no other families would have to endure such pain. They became vocal advocates for elder care reform, speaking out about the need for better protections and more stringent oversight in nursing homes. The case also galvanized community and national initiatives aimed at raising awareness about elder abuse and improving care standards. Grassroots movements and advocacy groups emerged, united by a common goal: to protect the elderly and ensure they received the respect and care they deserved. Campaigns were launched to educate the public about the signs of elder abuse and how to report it. These initiatives also focused on promoting legislative changes and encouraging the implementation of best practices in nursing homes. The collective effort of these advocacy groups brought about a significant shift in public perception and policy, highlighting the importance of safeguarding the most vulnerable members of society. The long-term effects of the Megan Haines case were far-reaching. Nursing homes across the country, and indeed around the world, began to implement changes to prevent similar incidents. The continuous monitoring and evaluation of these changes became a critical aspect of ensuring their effectiveness. Regular audits and inspections were conducted to assess compliance with new regulations and to identify areas for improvement. The case also inspired ongoing research into elder care practices, with the aim of developing innovative solutions to enhance the quality of care provided in nursing homes. 8. Conclusion. The tragic story of Megan Haines and her victims serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance and advocacy in elder care. It underscores the need for robust regulatory frameworks, continuous oversight, and a commitment to the well-being of the elderly. As we reflect on this case, let us remember Darragh and Isabella Spencer, and honor their memory by striving to create a safer and more compassionate environment for all those in care. The lessons learned from this tragedy must guide us in ensuring that such horrors are never repeated. Thank you for joining us on this episode of 22. We hope you found our dive into the dark corners of true crime both fascinating and enlightening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and consider joining our Patreon for exclusive content. As a Patreon member, you'll get access to behind-the-scenes material, early episode releases, bonus episodes, and much more. We value our community and your support helps us continue to bring these compelling stories to light. Don't forget to share your thoughts and theories in the comments, we love hearing from you. Join us next time as we continue to uncover more true crime stories that shock, inspire, and make you question the world around us. Stay safe, stay cautious, and we'll meet again in the next dark corner of true crime. Until then, keep your eyes open and your wits about you. Thank you for listening to 22.